Hello. So I'm really bad at intros. This is about my 42nd time recording. Wish I was joking. But I wanted to quickly mention that this is my first time ever editing a video at all, other than like cutting and obvious stuff like that. So if you enjoyed the video, please let me know in some way, shape, or form. I'll say more on that later on the outro. I swear I'm working on the part 2. I'm also going to mention that in the outro. I'm working on it. I just wanted to release something to y'all just to motivate me to keep working. Please enjoy the video, and I'll get back to you.
Pilot fighters, bombers, and attack aircraft, from biplanes to modern jets, dominate aerial battles and high-speed dogfights and devastating ground strikes, command tanks, armored cars, and SPGs, from World War II legends to modern tanks, control the battlefield through tactical positioning and devastating firepower. Captain destroyers and battleships bring heavy guns and thick armor to slow massive ocean battles where every salvo hits with devastating force. Helm torpedo boats, gunboats, and subchasers fight for control of the shoreline in the fast and agile warfare. Our first game was War Thunder. Honestly, it wasn't my favorite. I don't know if it just wasn't my cup of tea or what it was, but I had a pretty boring time. When I play a game, I prefer to have fun. And this game had parts of it that were fun, don't get me wrong, but it felt more like I was just having a passive fun that you get from playing games in general. That base level of dopamine you get from watching cool big explosions on your screen that you don't see in the real world. 90% of the time I played, I faced bots and was in tutorials. But the couple of games I did play against players, I was seriously outmatched. Which is okay. I'm a newbie. I expected that to happen. Can't be good off the first 2 games I've ever played. But even when I would get my one or two real kills, they were kind of boring. Comparing it to games like Call of Duty and Rainbow Six Siege, combat didn't really give me the same amount of dopamine. When you're playing a realism shooter, you snipe. You play slowly and you snipe and you get that one cool shot, and that's awesome. You put so much time into that and you finally got the shot. When we're playing Call of Duty, you're getting crazy kills. You get like 5 kills a game. It's awesome, fun, amazing. In this game, I don't really know what you're supposed to be getting. Like, you're not playing for slow and you're not playing for quick. You're just kind of playing, I guess. I don't really know. I mean, maybe you get 1 or 2 kills, but I mean, if there's a guy behind you, you're not gonna know. But it's also could be because I'm a newbie. I don't know, but from what I could tell, it just didn't have the same appeal to either genre of shooters, which tried to appeal to. I was pretty much staring down the timer the whole time I was playing, so that could also have attributed to my boredness, but I really think it just wasn't my cup of tea, wasn't my favorite genre. Moving on to the actual ratings. Firstly, the game was pretty easy to get into. Everything felt nicely smooth. The tutorials were good, and the first few games being bot matches certainly helped me learn the basics of fighting and getting in-match experience. Outside of being inside the game, or inside the matches rather, most of the things felt pretty natural, such as researching different parts and vehicles and navigating all the menus and such. There were a few times I felt a little lost. Particularly, I remember when I first unlocked other tank options, I couldn't figure out how to research them, but maybe I missed a hint or two. And if I had kept navigating or something, I'd probably have figured out how to. If I'd played another match, I think I could have gotten experience or something. I don't really know yet, because I didn't play enough. But I'm sure if I'd played more, I could have figured everything out. On a scale of how easy the game is to get into, I would definitely give it like a 6, 7. I'm gonna settle on 6 out of 10. But that's just because, again, I didn't play for more than an hour. So maybe if you play for more than an hour, you could have a higher score there. Because I only played for an hour, I really couldn't also tell what all was going to be free and what all couldn't be free. But based off of my hour experience, everything was free. I mean, there were things that looked like I could grind for, like better tanks, and stuff like that. And their cosmetics. There appeared to be cosmetics I could even grind for, compared to games like Fortnite where you have to buy all their cosmetics. But there was also a pay-to-win currency, which doesn't surprise me. It's a free game. What can you do? But I think it's definitely worth mentioning that you can easily buy what looks to be most things in the game. I was looking at the Steam page a second ago, and it looked like you could just outright buy vehicles. Not super sure, don't quote me on that. But that would be a very easy way to jump up the ranks in the game, which I'm not sure how I feel. It feels pay to win. But maybe the vehicles aren't super overpowered, and maybe they were just cosmetics. Maybe they were just skins or something, but I couldn't tell. That's really it on how free the game is. It's just you play, you download it, and you play. You enjoy it. So I'm going to give it about a 6, the same as the other one. Hell, I'll give it a 7. I'll settle on a 7. And finally, for how much fun I had, this is obviously going to be a little biased, but I was almost bored the entire time. There were times I would catch myself being curious about different playstyles or different tanks, different vehicles in general. Halfway through, I swapped from playing with boats to tanks simply because I wanted to try a different playstyle. And I would say that's part of the game, experimenting and having fun with different vehicles and different playstyles. The 4 main playstyles, which I think were planes, boats, a different kind of boat, and tanks. With that said, it got incredibly repetitive, really repetitive, and anytime I would swap to a different playstyle, I feel like I would feel like going back to the other playstyle just because it suited me more. The combat lacked any real exhilaration, I would say. Maybe that was just me, because there's a lot going on, don't get me wrong. Like, there's bombs dropping, there's like planes swooping in, you're always looking for your next opponent, which can feel exhilarating in some ways, but I didn't feel immersed. Like, it didn't feel like any of those things were actually happening in front of me, which I get from other games quite often. And even if I'm not getting it from a game, I don't feel like I want it from that game. This game I'm playing as a literal tank. I expect to feel at least a little immersed. Didn't feel that whatsoever. Maybe that just was because it's not my genre of game. That could be it. But because of that, I'm going to have to give it a 4 out of 10. And with all that said, that gives the score a total of 17 out of 30. So, would I recommend this game? I guess so. But I would argue that you have to be a specific kind of person to actually play and enjoy this game. It felt too slow to be a quick-paced shooter, but too quick to be a realism shooter. So, do with that as you will. And let's go ahead and move on to the next game.
Okay, this is run 2. I really want that guy. That reminds me of a Borderlands 2 psychopath. Now, for the second game, Fragpunk, I honestly really enjoyed this game, especially compared to what we last played. And I spent an extra 40 minutes playing it, and might even honestly come back to it. Really fun. However, with that said, I felt extremely overpowered or underpowered at certain points in terms of skill level. What I mean by that is, in almost every single game I played was with bots. And maybe 1, perhaps 2 games I played that weren't with bots, I got actually steamrolled. When I would play with the bots, I would hit probably really good shots, but otherwise I was just getting rolled over. One of the games that were against players that I loaded into, I died twice and then the game was over. Because the game was already half over by the time I joined. And I'm assuming that affected my total
like score or whatever they've got, because it put me right back into bot lobbies right after I played that game, which was really annoying because the game was already half over when I joined. But it is what it is. The enemy AI felt much better than my teammates. I assume that's because, I mean, AI is obviously worse than players. But when it feels like you're doing a 1v5 and your AI teammates are staring at a wall, it does make you feel a little pressured, which definitely makes you better, to say the least. But it does get a little annoying. Like, you wish at some points your teammates would actually do something instead of, again, stare at a wall. I did get a few cool clips against AIs, but those are against AIs, so I can't really go around showing anybody going, "Ooh, look at this cool clip I got," because it's a bot. You're not cool for that. Moving on to the actual ratings.
So for how easy the game was to get into,
Really depends on your skill level in shooters and 5v5 styled games.
for example, Valorant.
The game felt kind of like a clunky Call of Duty x Valorant x every other 5x5 shooter like Valorant. I will say the initial pop-up menus felt sort of like a mobile game, but other than that, the menu navigation was pretty nice. Understanding the characters and what they do felt also pretty easy. Now, I only played against pretty much the same characters over and over because most of my time was against bots. But even still, it felt decent. I was able to spot how certain things led me to get killed or spotted from character abilities or from their cards, which is a cool feature in the game that I might explain. During one point, I died to an invisible character, and I was pretty confused, but when I looked back at the kill cam, I noticed there was a cool visual effect on the ground that I didn't initially see because I'm blind. And within that area was a character's ability that enabled them to be invisible. So, I mean, and that was all just based off of, I saw it and, okay, well, that explains that. So, again, super simple abilities that make it pretty fun and hard to get mad at the players. It's just, you get mad at yourself for being blind, for example. The game did not... One thing that really pissed me off was the game didn't let me redo the tutorial. I don't know if I just missed something, but I looked it up a whole bunch, and everybody was kind of being... The community looked like a little bit of a... I don't know. The community looked a little rude, because they were all asking why do you need that? It's a super simple thing. It's super easy. And to me, I've never played a game with this style of abilities. There's like unique cards that the game has that affect each round, which is fun, but I didn't understand that for my first few games. I had to play a bunch of bot games purposefully. These were purposeful bot games just to figure out how to play. Which I do expect, but I wish I'd gotten a chance to do the tutorial or have some hints guide me on what's happening and what to do in the menu or what to do in-game or something. Because I feel like for people who don't play as many 5v5 style games like this, they're not really going to know.
That's a bot?
So that did bother me a little bit, but other than that, the menu navigation and everything else felt pretty simple. But just because of people who might be foreign to video games, I'm going to give it a 5. I'm going to say half those points are for people who are good at games, and the lack of the other half of those points are for people who aren't so good at video games and are learning. Moving on to the next one. This game is entirely free to play. The only things that were like being cut off were characters that you needed to grind for, which is in every character style 5v5 type game, and purchasable cosmetics, which is just to be expected in every free game like this. Even the money cosmetics, or even with the money cosmetics though, you get tons of free ones. Just in my near couple of hours of playing, I got like 3 gun skins. No, I got like more than 3 gun skins, I think. I don't remember. At least 3 gun skins, 4 plus charms, and hell knows how many stickers I got. At least 10. All of that for free. Some stuff, again, looked a little mobily, like the daily logins and like stuff like that, which is, I mean, I expect daily logins in most games now, but it just, the pop-ups made it feel mobily, and all the free rewards that I got. One thing that was pretty cool was, because of all the free rewards, I was already almost able to afford a character. I thought that was cool because, you know, a character off rip that really lets you choose the characters that you want to play, or choose a character that you want to play and get good with him, and then you can buy another character, and that's just a good gameplay loop in my head. I don't know if that's just because I joined at a special time, because there was like stuff I could get in the mail and there was like event stuff or what, but I started with like 16,000 credits or whatever the money system is. You only need 18 to or 19 to buy a character. Not every skin, once again, not every skin was locked behind a paywall. Of course a bunch were, but it was mostly just like rolling, like it was just gambling pretty much for most of the skins. You would open capsules and stuff. I didn't even open some of my capsules. I could have gotten way more cosmetics, but it not everything's locked behind paywalls. Also, the customization on guns. This is kind of a side note, not related to this category of question, but that was, I really liked it. It felt like old Call of Duty customization. I know I glazed this one a lot, but it really, I mean, there's nothing really locked behind paywalls, and that's what this category of question is. So I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10 on how free it is, simply because almost everything's free. If this game had been entirely free and there had been no pay to win or no pay to get cosmetics, then it would have been a perfect 10 out of 10. But, of course, I didn't have that, so let's go ahead and move on to the next category. And for the second and last rating, how much fun did I have? Honestly, I say that a bunch. Sorry about that, but honestly, I had a great time. I definitely felt the urge to play a lot more. That's a little, of course, this is biased. That's all this genre is going to be, is bias. But the game was fun. It was a fun game. It felt simple, which made it easier to play than other 5v5 shooters, because you got to learn all their abilities and everything. But in this game, it felt simple, easy to learn. It didn't appear to have skill-based matchmaking, from what I could tell. I mean, every time I played against players, I was bottom of the leaderboard. Every time I played against bots, I was top. So it was definitely not skill-based, from what I could tell. But most games, most 5v5 shooters, from what I could tell, are like that, kind of, maybe, perhaps. So I'm going to glaze over that fact. And maybe I'll add it to the score, I don't know. I kind of felt like I was playing COD single player, though. What I mean is, every game I played was against bots, except for the 2 that I mentioned way before. And I really hate that feeling. I want to hear random people giving comms, or have at least some human interaction. I feel like when I'm playing a 5v5 shooter, I'm expecting to interact with my other 4 teammates and maybe talk a little bit of shit to the other 5 enemies, I mean. But there was none, because it was all bots for 2 hours. And even in the 2 games that I played, the community, I can't judge a whole community off 2 games. I can't judge a whole community at all, but I can't judge a whole community of gamers in any way off 2 games. But, dare I say, nobody talked. There was no chatting. I don't even think, I think I seen one person ping something in both of those games, which is crazy, because you're always given, like, your teammates are always giving you pings so you know what to do or where to shoot, where to go. But I didn't get any pretty much the entire time, so I was just going off of the in-game ping system, which, dare I say, was really good. It would auto-ping where people were shooting, like Call of Duty, where my teammates died, auto-pinged. All of that stuff. It also, what I really liked, one feature was, when I would die fighting someone, it would say in chat how much damage I dealt to an enemy before I died. So it almost eliminated the need to give some callouts, but they still would have been nice to have. And again, it just felt devoid of human interaction. So the entire thing felt lonely. To put it simple, the game's lonely. The first couple of hours, at least. The feeling definitely got overwhelmed with how good it felt to get a kill, especially compared to the last game, War Thunder. So it wasn't terrible. I've shamed it a lot because of how lonely it felt, but it really wasn't that bad. And if I had played if I played continuously, I could definitely get player interaction, way more player interaction. But it definitely felt lonely enough to bring the score down, so I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. And moving on to the final category. With all that yapping out of the way, time to give this game its final score. With all of it adding up, it should add up to 20 to be exact. So would I recommend this game? For sure. It was a good game. However, are the first few hours probably going to be boring and lonely? Yeah, not entirely boring, just if you're someone who plays a game for human interaction, which doesn't really make sense in my head now that I'm saying it like that, but if you're playing a game and expecting human interaction rather, then the intro to this game may be a little tiresome to get through, but it's fun. I'll give it that. And the people who are more foreign to the style of this game are also going to have a little bit of a harder time getting into it. But other than those two main factors of it being kind of lonely at the start and people foreign to this video game style having a hard time, it was a great game. Put it simple. So let's go ahead and move on to the next game. This is Path of Exile.
Authority of the Templar, you are hereby exiled to the forsaken shores of Reichlast. You have transgressed against God.
So, swapping up games or genres from PvP to PvE, we have Path of Exile as our third game. I didn't feel like I got very far in this game for the amount of time I played, but I would find that a good thing. That tells me that there's tons of content, but that's something I would definitely expect from a PvE game. A more content-based game than PvP, obviously. It felt like the game kind of represented the genre itself, which is a top-down hack and slash, or whatever genre this was. And it felt a ton like Diablo, which is the game I grew up on. So I really enjoyed my time playing it. There aren't very many cons I had whilst playing it, honestly. No rebuttals and ands, buts, or ifs. It was just a good game. So moving on to the rating, the game was super easy to get into. Though parts of it kind of felt a little overwhelming, and I have a ton of experience in this genre of game, so that could be why. So warning for the bias here, but there were definitely parts of it that were overwhelming. One big example of that was the skill trees. Holy hell, the skill tree was crazy. I'm assuming that it's meant to be as daunting as it is, and I'm sure it's a staple feature of the game to have such a big skill tree. I'm sure it's like its main thing or whatever compared to most other hack and slash top downs like this, but it definitely is a little daunting. I still find it cool though. I find it awesome that they have that much content. The story also confused me a lot. They threw around a bunch of crazy words that didn't really make sense to me, but I'm sure if I had really looked into it and I really cared about lore and the story itself, then I'd understand it a bit more. The most I got / understood was that I was a criminal on like an island doing quests for people. But I mean, I'm sure I could have looked into it more. There was a random like gin feature. I didn't really know what that was, but it definitely
was confusing, to say the least. It is also 7 in the morning, or it was 7 in the morning when I started playing. It's about 8 now. So that could contribute to, like, brain fog or something like that. For example, brain frog. But because of how simple this game was, I'm going to give it a solid 7 out of 10 for how easy it was to get into. From what I can tell, this game was entirely free and gave me 0 pop-ups. At least 0 that I remember. For purchasing cosmetics, I mean. Or really anything. And I really liked that. It made it feel very good. It made it feel less mobile-like, which is a lot of video games, console or PC, are going towards now. Very mobile-esque for some reason. I didn't even know there were cosmetics, to be honest, until I mistakenly opened the store while exploring the keybinds. And I didn't even look at it. I just immediately closed it. So I'm struggling to talk on this, or I'm not really struggling, but I don't know everything that I could know on this topic, is what I'm trying to say. But all of that is definitely going to bump up the score for just this category. However, I always say however, we know this. According to the different ratings of the game and different posts online, it does seem that enjoying the in-game without spending any money could be annoying. So that is something to look out for if you're planning on playing this game yourself. If you like run out of stash space or something like that in the future, supposedly it's really easy to happen when you're playing late game. I think that's what I was reading. Again, I didn't get that far, so it's really hard to judge on this topic. But it does seem to be an issue. So I will dock a point for that, but otherwise, the game seemed perfectly free to play, and I didn't even realize there were cosmetics. So I'm going to give it the same score as the game last, a 9 out of 10. Right on the verge of a perfect free-to-play game. Just the skins and late-game amenities that you'll want bring that score a little down. Moving on. So up next we have how much fun I had. Game was a great time. Might even play more of it in the future. It definitely felt like Diablo. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I feel like a lot of games, this genre of games are going to be very similar to each other. Even if they're not trying to be. But the game felt a lot like Diablo, and I heavily enjoyed that game growing up. So that definitely contributes to how much fun I had. According to different online sources that I could find online, the game was also, like, it played a massive role in action role-playing games and that entire genre, and definitely the community. And I could definitely see why the game's still really popular 13, 14 years later, because the game came out in 2012, which is crazy to say that was a lot long ago, but anyways. So, I don't really have much more to add on to that. I had a good time playing it. I didn't have much to say bad about it. I'm going to give it a solid 7 out of 10. Not going to go any higher just because it's really hard for me to have a game that I want to actually contribute most of my time to. So, let's move on to the actual total score. So, with everything said, the game's total score adds up to 23, which is our highest yet. I feel like we're kind of on a staircase here. We keep getting higher and higher rated games. I didn't organize it like that. This video is not organized. I'm just playing them in a random order that I wrote them down in. I think the game definitely deserves that score, considering its role in the genre's community and overall how good of a game it felt. I didn't see very many reused like assets, or like looking at it from that standpoint, I didn't really see much that could make the game worse from a quality standpoint. That to say, the game seemed incredibly high quality. So that's really all I've got to say on this game. I didn't really think about much of what was happening, to be honest, because it is 7 in the morning. So that may have swayed some things throughout the score. But I definitely think that a 23 out of 30 for this game is a decently reasonable score. Let's go ahead and move on to what we have next. Hey, Editor Steph here. Just wanted to quickly say that I've kind of shifted views on how I see each game and how free it is. So I wanted to reevaluate those scores really quickly. I'm going to now be judging it off of what you can't get instead of what you can get for a free game. And you may be wondering why, but I'm doing that just so I can change up some of these scores a little bit, because if you compare them directly to each other off of what you can get, they're all different experiences. If you compare them to what you can't get, then you're going to see the differences in how free each game is. So with that said, I'm going to immediately judge War Thunder, and I'm going to say that it is entirely free to play, but it is also slightly pay to win, and is described online to be pay to progress, which just means pay to win. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 because it also features a battle pass, and I feel like that's lacking in freeness, obviously. Next is Fragpunk, and as much as I loved all the free things it gave me, I feel like I failed to acknowledge the fact that most skins are still paid for. Not most, nearly all of them are. So, just felt like I missed out on explaining that. There is also a battle pass system, but the game is nowhere near being pay to win, and features no pay to win aspects. So I'm gonna bump the score down to like a 7. Still positive, but overall, not. And for the sake of speeding this up, I'm gonna skip the explanation for Path of Exile. It's nearly the exact same as Fragpunk, though. Battle pass system, purchasable skins, but not pay to win. So I'll give it a repeat of 7 out of 10, and we're gonna move on. Shit, I'm guessing. Probably crouching will help too, though. I don't know. Yeah, that guy definitely saw you, bro.
Oh my god, where did he go? Wait a minute. Where'd he go?
Wait, look to your left. Look behind you.
Oh my god! Dude!
Oh my god. Holy shit. So for our 4th game, Stallcraft X, to be for real, I barely paid attention to like any of the story. And because of that, I think I felt a little less immersed than I should have. But also there was so much reading going into the game that the only part I really paid attention to was the intro, and the rest of it just I couldn't find the motivation to actually read all the essays of words that were showing up on my screen. Comparing it to like Path of Exile, where there was the occasional thing to read that gave decent elaboration and then moved on, this was so much to read that I just couldn't bring myself to. I mean, it's not like I'm like illiterate or anything. I could have if I wanted to, but I didn't feel like I needed to. I'm playing a video game. Parts of the game did seem interesting, but it's hard to take a game seriously when all the characters look like Steve from Minecraft. At least it's hard for me to take the game seriously. So I didn't really enjoy this one all that much, clearly, based off my attitude towards it already. Normally I would give a rebuttal here and be like, but really I just didn't enjoy it all that much. It seemed fun in a way, like to specific people. Like it definitely leans towards a specific community more than likely. And there also seemed to be a good few people playing it. And even had a little bit of a player, and I even had a little bit of player interaction. I exchanged knife blows with one person, and I saw some chats. So it's more than Fragpunk already within the first hour, which is all I played because I didn't like this game that much. But that didn't really change the fact that it still was boring in my head. I also played this game with a friend that I frequently play many other games with. So that kind of changed my perspective of it and made me have a little bit more fun than if I were by myself. If I were by myself, I definitely would have seen this game in a different light. But because I wasn't, I can't. So we kind of exchanged perspectives. The furthest I really paid attention to the story was in the intro, like I said earlier. Past that, I skipped like all dialogue options and just ran around with my friend doing random things that we could see. Like, it's very open world, which I find interesting, but other than that. So moving on to the ratings. Firstly, how easy is this game to get into? Now, to say this game is anything like what I expected it to be would be a complete lie. I expected it to be some completely blocky game and act as if it was some sort of Minecraft survival ripoff game, which it was not. It was completely not what I was expecting. It was almost as if it was like a Fallout mixed with like Pixel Gun 3D, if you know what that game is. So it didn't feel like what I expected it to. And I almost feel as bad for how much I expected it to be like Minecraft when it wasn't. The game was entirely in Russian, but it did have subtitles, so that worked for me. According to sources online, there does appear to be a version where they speak English, but is, and I quote, known within the community to be very rough. So, whatever. The game felt decent enough to understand, but me and my friend got bored pretty quick. I'm gonna chalk that up to us skipping dialogue and not being quite, and it not being quite our cup of tea. But I do find it worth mentioning that the game seems to be for that specific group of people who are like into this kind of game. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10. And moving on. Next is how free to play this game was. Now, according to different things online, there were several different ways to spend your money, namely premium, skins, and several other amenities. Moreover, there are also several reports online for the game being extremely pay to win. With that said, through my actual experience, I not once thought of there being anything to purchase in the entire game. Now, I only played an hour of it, and that hour was spent mostly fucking around. But even then, not a single thing I noticed was pay to win, and it felt more like a story game, an open world story game. The game did open my browser and take me to their website upon opening, and I think I did see like something you could buy there, like I seen like partnerships or something. I don't know, but other than that, there wasn't anything. But just because I didn't see anything doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So I'm only gonna give this game a 5 out of 10. Half those points for not spamming to buy anything and just not seeing anything to purchase at all. The other half for all the things I saw online, all the reports, and just the disrespecting for all of its paid features. And for the final rating, how much fun did I have? To be quite frank, this game is not my style at all. It kind of felt edgy at points. And overall, I felt I had no motivation to actually immerse myself and read all of the lore, which I feel like was a big contributor to the game that helped you understand what was happening, like it is in every game, in every story-like game like this. There was tons to read, as I said before. Every quest involved like numerous paragraphs of reading, which I'm not opposed to, but I have to enjoy a game to want to know what's happening and reading all that, and I just didn't feel the immersion / want to. Even with my friend, we had barely any fun, and the funnest point we had was getting jump scared by a troop running around a wall, aka the clip that played at the very beginning of this section of the video, which is insane to say because normally me and my friend enjoy pretty much every game we play, but this one in particular we were just kind of having a boring time with. I honestly have like no positive things to say even at this point. However, don't let my experience hold you back from playing this game. Let me repeat, don't let my experience hold you back from playing this game. It did seem to have an appeal for other people, and I could see how someone could easily sink tons of times into it, if it's actually their style. It just wasn't my style, and that's okay. For me, though, even though I just gave that heartwarming speech, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. Because, again, I didn't like it. Now, with all of that out of the way, the total score of the game would add up to 12 out of 30. So would I recommend this game? I think we all know the answer. No. However, there's always a however with me, and I've already said that before. I do see how someone could enjoy this kind of thing. So once more, let me say, don't let me hold you back from playing. If it seemed interesting to you, play it. Just wasn't for me, and might not be for the average gamer, which is why I don't recommend it. However, if you want to, play it. Moving on to the next game.
Hey, so that was part 1. I really hope you enjoyed it. As I said before, I'm working on part 2 right now. If you liked that content, if you liked what you just watched, please show us some form of support by liking, subscribing, commenting, all of that shabazz that every other YouTuber asks you to do, because I'm a new channel and I would like to know if anybody's actually watching or enjoying this. With all that said, I really hope you enjoyed the video, and have a nice day.